going to raise funds, we're going to have a big plan. That's not how it happened, is it? No, it's something that emerged organically. You knew that something was possible. You knew that there was a there. And we've all caught the glimpse of a there that stirs our hearts. But you didn't know how to get from point A to point B. So how do you make something happen that you don't know how to make happen? The only way is to be in service to that which wants to be born. And to offer your gifts toward this thing that wants to be born. So yeah, people ask me what should I do? I don't know. I mean, I know some things to do, and I'm not saying that the things that we know how to do, we shouldn't do. But as far as a sense of optimism, if someone says, well, prove that it's possible, Charles, I can't do that. Yet I know that it's possible. I'll say one more thing about that. I often also get accused of romanticizing the past or of naivete, of being naive. And I think that both of those accusations are coming from the same place. It's a place of pain and grief. Because this knowledge that the world is supposed to be more beautiful, every child is born with that. Every child is born knowing that you're not supposed to hate Monday. Something like 75% of all people in my country hate their job. We're born with the knowledge that our environment isn't supposed to be full of ugly things, cheap, ugly things. We know that. But that knowledge gets, and we also know that we are, that each one of us has a magnificent gift to give towards something beautiful and meaningful. Like we know this, and this knowledge is suppressed and betrayed again and again, and it's very painful. And then when something reawakens that knowledge, like the film Ancient Futures, like these glimpses of what's possible, or somebody saying, yeah, we could do this, then that wound is awakened, and it's afraid that it's going to get betrayed again. So we retreat into cynicism. And the cynic thinks that he's being realistic. But actually, the cynic doesn't do anything. It's the naive person who follows this sense of a possibility, even if you don't know every step of the way there. It's the naive person who tries the impossible and then discovers that it isn't impossible after all.
No one else. This is like, dude, do we have a chance, guys? What do you guys think?
I've never thought that was a question that one should ask. Because if you don't have a chance, then you might as well all come to Goa and hang out on the beach. And not meet here in an institution like this. As a matter of fact, most of my friends in the mining world and in the real estate world and in the hotel industry and all have been wanting to get me into a lunatic asylum locked up a long time back. But today I am here in a lunatic asylum in a Niemann's Institute. And I feel so happy. There are a whole lot of other lunatics who think that they can take on this global enterprise.
It's an institute meant to be
This is a paper tiger. This is a paper tiger. Mao Zedong always look on these things as paper tigers. If you look at the American experience over the last 40 to 50 years, and the amount of weaponry, invasions, wars, etc. that America has launched, you'll be surprised to know that there are only one war so far, and that is against this Bermuda, or what is this one? Grenada. Our Sri Lankans will beat them to a pulp. They got kicked out of Vietnam. They've recently been kicked out of Iraq. Iraq, Afghanistan, they are going to be kicked out. And so what would you learn from this? That if you look at the amount of trillions of dollars that they have printed and put into arms purchase and gone around, you would think that they should be ruling not just the earth, but the bloody cosmos. Think of the weaponry. Think of the amount of atomic bombs that they have and which are not dismantled. They should really be ruling everybody, even the insects of the world.
They think they are.
Maybe they think, but I'm saying, so why would you think that they are powerful? They cause a lot of harm, they cause a lot of violence, they cause a lot of destruction, they cause a lot of things, and only the world will probably be at peace when the entire continent probably disappears as a result of an earthquake or something. But in real terms, their effect, you look at the Latin America, how it is changing. I mean, once it was supposed to be the backyard. Now nobody today would say Latin America is the backyard of the United States. And this is after putting in so much of money into Latin America, into counter-insurgency, special operations, doing so many things. So I always look at the world as an activist, always able to do something. If you begin with the thing that this is so big and that you will not be able to do anything, then you are not going to be able to do anything. But my practical advice to people is, don't try and look at it from the global point of view. Your real sphere of action is always where you are.
Yeah.
It first begins yourself. If you are unhappy with yourself because you think that you are a dirty little piece of mud which has to be sent to a laundromat in an education process to become beautiful, to be accepted by some corporate guy to sell toothpaste, there's nothing that can help you. There's nothing that's going to get up your case. But if you believe that you are the most unique person in the world, the most unique person in the world, unique set of fingerprints, unique identity, unique everything, then you never will want to hide it in a pair of some jeans with some brand name or some Nike shoes or something. You want to show that you are this guy and nothing in this branded world can really brand you. Now, once you begin with that conviction, then nothing, literally I can tell you, nothing can stop you. Right now, there's a whole army of people who will prevent you from believing that, beginning from your parents. Then your neighborhood. That's your battlefield. The battlefield is not the Pentagon. The battlefield is here. There's a whole lot of people telling you, you are not, as he said, you are not what you are. You are really a piece of, sorry I'm using this whole word, I've stopped using it. You should be like this Michael Jordan. You should be like this fellow. You should be like Amir Khan, whatever it is. You are some defective piece which nature created. You've got to get yourself through all these, certifications, polishings, etc. Until you become acceptable, until you can perform in decent society and be civilized. So that is your war. If you fight that war and you succeed with that war, this is where these guys like Jain and all these people have been talking to us for so many, years. Then I think that literally you have that sense of empowerment. Because then afterwards there's nothing they can do to you. There's really nothing. If your parents can't do anything to you, you say, I love you, but I still have to do my own thing. And I still have to be happy in what I'm doing, not in what you want me to do. So all those battles, if you solve and resolve, you'll be
music to my ears, Claude. Camila, what do you think about it? Do we have any chance from Latin America?
We definitely have, otherwise we would not have the strong movements we have there. And I was telling yesterday that, and it's very good to have someone that will speak on behalf of the Via Campesina, that all the change, the social change that we have achieved in Brazil, with the most crucial issue for us, which is land reform, because Brazil is the country in the world with the most unequal land distribution. It was only possible with a massive movement for land occupation and to demand the constitutional right that land and property has to fulfill its social function. So what's not sitting or waiting or dialoguing was showing its physical presence, its massive physical presence, and demanding what was their rights. And all the movements that have emerged in Latin America, which is a very vivid continent, and I'm very proud to come from there and to be here sharing this, is that despite our colonial history and how we have been taught in the schools even today that the Portuguese discovered us, you know? And then all the history that happened after that, and was Latin America split and over between the crown of Spain and Portugal, that even today we have this most strong indigenous movement in the Andean regions. They have put forward a proposal that we have to trash the whole development ideology and that we have to recover, and then again the ancient futures, a very old tradition in the indigenous cosmology about sumac causai, which is a buen vivir, which is the good life that you cannot measure, and it is not under this economic spin, but it has all the connection with Mother Earth and Pachamama, as we call. And we have, for the first time in 500 years, the very first president of one country, that is Evo Morales in Bolivia, that is a result of a social movement that has brought him to power. And I think what's happening in Latin America can be very inspiring, but I only believe that the change can come from social movements and from people on the streets and on movement, on doing things, because isolated behind its screens and Facebooks and the like, we can never change anything.
I hear Claude belly rumbling up here, so I think we need to wrap up in a couple of minutes. Helena, do you want to say anything about this?
Just to add also a few movements that we haven't mentioned that are very hopeful. One of them is the Transition Town movement. How many of you have heard of the Transition Town movement? So still very few of you. It's a very inspiring movement, started in England with groups of people who are trying to essentially to localize. Originally it started because of the concern about peak oil, but then as people started thinking about their dependence on oil, the shift is exactly in the direction that we're talking about, rebuilding community, local food, local businesses, local banking. So that's a strong localization movement that's now spread to several thousand communities around the world. There's also the Buen Vivir movement that Camila mentioned. Buen Vivir, it means good living. It's very much an economics of happiness movement from South America with some very good economists, some of whom we had invited who weren't able to come. So that's a strong movement from South America. In Europe, there is the degrowth movement. How many of you have heard of the degrowth movement? Yeah, it's actually started with a friend of mine named Serge Latouche in France, the decroissance movement, but it's probably strongest in Italy. And there's a parallel movement. There's the degrowth movement, and then there's the happy degrowth movement. They're two separate but closely aligned movements. So there's a lot happening, and we need again to get informed to hear about these things, because we're not going to hear about them from the media. And I also want to say that the happy news, in a way, about America is that the American presidents are not at all linked to their people. So it's not the American people that are imposing this monstrous system on the Americans as well as on you here. What I've always been saying is the US president is the leading political voice for the elephant, for the corporate and banking system. So he's as much helping the billionaires from India and China and Goldman Sachs. He's a global leader for a global elephant, abandoning his people, and which is why also the people of America, there is a strong movement, a very exciting movement. And I also just wanted one slide addition to what Claude was saying, I would say that we don't need to encourage our child to feel that they're the most unique in the world. What I have found in the happier cultures, including Ladakh in the early days, was that you didn't have to feel the best at anything. You didn't have to feel the most unique. Everyone felt loved and unique. And they knew that others were too, because they were connected to each other. So there is this wonderful win-win-win model where we don't have to feel the best at anything. And when we feel connected to others and part of a bigger whole, that's when we feel at peace and feel happy. Thank you.
So, I'm going to break the rules and schedule, and I'm going to give time for a couple of questions before we go to lunch. So, if there's... Sorry, can you please come up here? We're going to have more time in the afternoon.
Can you elaborate a bit more on the need versus want?
No. Need versus want.
And that's a personal choice. I have a personal choice.
Aseem.
Yeah. To elaborate a little bit more on needs versus wants. Well, of course, every human being has a need for food, for healthy food, for a diversity of food, for a type of shelter, for clean drinking water. We know those basic human material needs. Also, what I was saying earlier is this universal need to feel loved and cared for. Whenever we talk about human needs, let's not forget the children. It's something that so often happens. Remember what those tiny little infants need. They need love and nurturing. And what you can see around the world is that the way we evolved was in groups that were big enough so that every mother shared the care for the child with about 10 other people. In the modern system, isolated in our cages, we've created a very unnatural nuclear family where we're not able to respond to those innate needs, and where we do the most terrible thing, by segregating grandmother and grandfather and great-grandmother and great-grandfather young. It's one of the most brutal and efficient ways of creating unhappiness and greed. So reconstituting intergenerational relationships is a very, very important part of the way forward. I know it's not easy living in the city now. The extended family can become something very different. We need to see that the economic model of localization structurally helps to reconstruct those relationships between the generations.
Yeah. Charles, you want to say something quick about that?
Yeah. I'll say something about wants and needs. We have this idea that it's okay to fulfill your needs, but it's selfish to fulfill your wants. I think that, though, and it looks like our wants, our desires, are destroying the planet. I say our to mean we in the West and the dominant culture that's spreading everywhere. But I think that wants come from unmet needs. But sometimes they're perverted onto something that doesn't meet the need. So, like Helena was talking about the need to belong, the need to be loved, the need to be connected. And if that need is unmet, and you're offered Coca-Cola, here, you need to belong, drink this, then you'll belong. But how much Coca-Cola do you have to drink to really have the feeling of belonging? An infinite amount. And that's why unmet needs are good for business, as long as they stay unmet. But then we go to war against the addiction to the Coca-Cola. We go to war against the consumerism. We think that human beings are greedy and selfish, and we have to control that. But these are all symptoms. And when the real needs are met, then the addictive wants go away. And that's a kind of scarcity thinking that's saying the problem is that there's something wrong with you, and that has to be conquered. That's just another reflection of the war on nature. Enough of that.
So one more question. There's going to be much more time in the afternoon, and I know people are getting hungry. So one more from the way in the back.
Okay, this is Uday here. would like to ask here. I'm kind of at the back end. Okay, we did speak about urbanization, and that was a very good discussion. And I don't know whether my question is going to be relevant, but still I would like to ask so that I get more clarity. One of my friends recently, shared with me about the Economic Intelligence Survey, which talks about top 10 livable cities of the world. Where three of four from Australia, then three from Canada, and Osaka, Helsinki, Vancouver. Those are the cities which they said, they are top 10 livable cities. I mean, would the panel want to share whether this point is relevant to be discussed, or is there something which, is there something for every one of us to know from that?
I would not discuss it. Cities are not livable.
Let's have a seat first.
Just 2 lines in response to that question. I think that one has to ask why a question like that has to be asked.
What I would like to say is, knowing people in Vancouver, in Sydney, we live in Australia, is that the reality again is very different from this veneer of media and statistics that we're getting. In Vancouver and in Sydney, the house prices are skyrocketing. In Vancouver now, it's a lot of Chinese that are buying the property, and in Australia, very often just as an investment, not even coming to live there. We're in a terrible, terrible situation where we're allowing this elephant to become bigger, and the flows of capital back and forth are destroying the quality of life everywhere. Yes, there are some people who are very wealthy and who are doing okay in Sydney and in Vancouver and in some of these other cities, but the writing is on the wall. The mobility of foreign investment, the instability, and the skyrocketing house prices. Wherever there are jobs to be had, that's where the house prices naturally go up, and millions